Hi, you're listening to Julie Taylor, and this is Julie and Company. Today, our guest is John Ballard. John is a painter, someone I've come across on Facebook as the Croquis of Knowlton, Sketchers of Knowlton page, and I loved his work, and he's agreed to meet with us today. Hi, John.
Hi, good to be here.
I'm happy you're here. Thank you. Such a nice little morning of snow.
A morning of gentle snow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. John, I was impressed by the formal renditions of some of your fusain or sketching, and I was wondering, is this your profession?
Now it is, since I don't do anything else. But I obviously had a normal career up until I retired. I was fortunate to be able to retire early, so I retired when I was about 57, I think, and I've been painting, drawing, and so on since then, more full time. Although, of course, I used to paint and draw as a hobby in the past.
I see. So what's a normal career?
I worked in the finance business, the complete opposite of painting. I trained as an engineer, and then I moved into the absolutely unique role of specializing in what's called derivative product markets.
But I think Montreal Exchange is derivatives.
I came here to start that up, indeed.
Yeah. Oh, you started it up?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
That was my job, in fact.
We're going back, 20 years, 30?
Oh, no, I came here really in about 1990.
Okay.
30 years.
30 years. Okay, so I'm on cue with my memory.
I used to do that around the world. I had been in Singapore, in Paris, and various other places in Europe, starting markets of a similar sort. I was probably one person who was one page ahead of everybody else in the textbook.
How interesting that you do something so specialized across the world still, and from finance and illustrating as a hobby, or painting, or...
Yeah, I think that may be why I had this Cartesian mind. So my paintings are fairly detailed, my drawings are fairly strict and detailed, and what I would call realist.
Yes.
Now, I don't go in for abstract.
Normally, I'd probably keep this for later on in the conversation, but it's just popped in my mind. Do you find that the language of patterns in trades or mathematics or finances and the language of art overlap, or is there a bridge you make between the two?
There is an overlap, and this is one of my hobby horses. If you're in the science or finance-related business, there's a whole learning process to get to know the details before you can experiment on your own.
So are we talking about observing patterns or broader movements before you specialize?
Observing patterns, absolutely. But it's more specifically learning what I call artistic grammar, how to draw a line, how to make form look round and not just flat. And there's a whole grammar and a technique involved in learning to do that. And it is strictly learning, like learning maths or learning to write in grammar and so on. You need to learn the basics, and then you can go off and do...
So we're talking about formulas? Do you apply different formulas?
Not exactly. No? It's almost like a formula, but it's a physical act.
Okay.
So rather than being a mathematical formula, it's a physical act of how you apply a pencil or a paintbrush to a flat surface, and how do you measure proportions of the thing you're drawing. And if you're drawing a tree, are you really drawing that tree, or is it just any old tree anywhere? And I tend to go for the specific. I like to portray that particular tree or that particular person or whatever
realism.
It may be. Yeah, realism. Yep.
So maybe somebody else in the audience is wondering, how does that apply to markets and mathematics?
Well, I mean, it's a similar thing. You have to learn the mathematics and the grammar, if you will, of how a market works. A market is an extremely sophisticated beast. And if you add to that sophisticated products that have quite complex constructions, then you have the mathematics of the product, and you have the psychology of the market, of how
so
people...
the perception, if you're looking at the eye versus the line on paper,
right,
there's a bridge you have to create. You have to fill that void yourself to know where the line goes.
Exactly.
So when it comes to product, or let's say markets, you just mentioned there's the perception.
Yeah, that's right. It's a matter of people, or certainly when I was doing it, it was a matter of people, because those people actually met on the floor of a stock exchange or on an exchange, and they actually interacted physically. Yes. And so it was observing and seeing how people interacted and teaching them what are more sophisticated methods, as it were, of interacting to make a deal. Not to just buy, sell anything, but to think about what you're doing and how in the heat of the moment, how can you keep a control over what you're doing and how can you make a deal?
Okay, so this was your background in markets.
That's right.
And then you identified derivative markets, and now you become specialized in that. And what are you teaching regarding that when you're putting it in place?
I'm setting up the logistics. So in order for a market to function, there has to be a physical space. Yep. There has to be computer systems that will keep a track of who's doing what to whom. There has to be recording systems so that you can actually report prices of what people are trading at. And there's a whole logistical background, as well as the mechanics of, well, do you just buy low and sell high? Is that the way you make money? And basically, yes.
Yeah. And you have people on the floor.
And you have physical traders sitting on the... In fact, in the derivatives market, they stand in what was called a pit. So it's actually like a hole in the ground. And all the traders stand around the hole and shout at each other. That's exactly how it used to work.
And so you integrate all those different factions or those different operations.
That's what I try to do. In fact, I think one of the best examples is when I went to Paris to set up a market in Paris. The French knew what the system was, but they had no idea how it worked. And they basically said to me, we've seen how in London they had one of these things called a derivatives markets. We would like one there, please. And then it came my job to kind of help and set the thing up and make sure it worked.
Were you an independent?
I was working for a British company at the time, but I was working almost as a consultant, a freelance consultant with this British company.
That's really interesting.
It was fun. It was a unique career because obviously I got to see around the world in doing it.
Right. And so, so we sidetracked, but how interesting. And so you come from England, your accent is a sure
My accent
giveaway.
Gives me away.
Yes. And you spent some time in different European cities.
Yep.
You came to Montreal. You met your wife in Montreal, but early, before being shipped off again to Europe.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I first came to Montreal in 1984 to do some work with the Montreal Exchange, and I met my wife at that time. I stayed for about a year, and then I was going off. In fact, I was going to Singapore, I think, from Montreal, and I had met my wife, so we sort of said, well, we've got a relationship going. Whatever happens, we will end up in Montreal for sure at some stage in the future. I moved from Singapore to Paris, and my wife came and joined me in Paris, and then she came and lived in London for a while, always understanding that we would end up in Montreal. And then in 1990, fortunately, the opportunity presented itself.
That's so interesting because you had the privilege of living in beautiful cities. You could have carried on beautiful cities.
Absolutely.
And you came towards Montreal, and now you're in beautiful Knowlton.
Yes.
And what do you find Knowlton offers?
We ended up in Knowlton almost by accident. We knew that we wanted to buy a country house somewhere. And my wife, when she was younger, had always lived in the Laurentians. So we sort of looked around the Laurentians. And then on one weekend, we were travelling down in the eastern townships. And we said, well, while we're here, why don't we just go into a realtor and see what's got? And we went actually into a realtor, the one that's next door here. And we said, we'd just like a map, please, just so that we can look around and know where we're going. And the realtor said to us, well, what are you looking for? And we said, well, yeah, possibly a country house somewhere. So she said, oh, by chance, I have this one that just came in this morning, which I haven't listed yet. Would you like to see it? So we said, sure, we'll go and see it. And we bought it.
Lovely. So that you bought it, but it was a secondary house for a little while.
It was a secondary house for about 7 or 8 years, Yeah.
And now you live here full time.
And now full time, yep.
And do you find that the landscapes have similar, they modulate, or I don't know how to, I see this shape. Do they remind you of Europe?
Here, a little. That was one thing that I felt about the Laurentians. It felt very different.
Very.
Everything is kind of small lakes in between mountains, and views are generally fairly limited.
And the vegetation is different.
And it's all pines.
And the soil is different.
That's right.
And it's very, very different to me.
That's right.
And when I came here, because I do have some family in England as well, when I was younger, I used to spend more time there. It just really resonated with me.
Yeah, I find it to be, there are buildings that could almost be English buildings, and there are vistas, particularly if you go up towards Brill, around the back, on towards Mont Glen. There are vistas that could very much be English countryside.
Yes, and I think you may agree, the relationship to agriculture in this region speaks also of the, not speaks of, but resembles the agriculture and relationship to agriculture that European countries have.
It certainly does, yeah. I mean, it's not 100%, but there's a lot of similarities, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's what is in this region, and with the language, of course, English and French, it resonates with
that's
people
right.
from...
I enjoyed the fact that it was probably one of the most bilingual towns that we had visited. Since I had lived in Paris, I was fluent in French in any case, so the French language was not a problem for me. But it was nice to have both opportunities to speak English and to speak French.
Thanks for bringing it up, because I think it's there's something unique to the bilingualism here compared to other areas of perhaps Quebec, where it's not an issue, it's a strength, it's a way that people communicate from the heart.
Absolutely.
It's not really associated with prestige or... You know what I mean?
That's right, yeah.
There's something extremely human about it. It's a communication.
It is. I'd spent a little while working in Toronto while I was working in the finance markets, and the Torontonians frequently said to me, we enjoy Quebec, but we can never get on with French. And I always replied to them, well, why don't you learn it? Because you're missing so much.
Yes.
If you can't speak the language, you can't read a French book, you can't see a French play, you can't see a French film, you're missing so much. Learn it. I did.
And so do you use it a lot here?
A fair amount. The croquist is, I would say, 80 or 90% French.
Yes.
I play golf at the Knowlton Golf Club, and that's getting up to about 75% French speaking now as well. So, yeah, I get the opportunities to use it a fair bit.
Is your wife bilingual for sure, but is she mother tongue in French?
Oh, yeah, pure laine.
Pure laine. And do you find that she reverts back to French more? Is that the language at home?
Most of the time we probably speak English at home, but no, she's quite happy to speak French, and I can happily ignore her or listen in French or English.
I shouldn't say this just in case, but I think the strength in a marriage sometimes is the dual language, and if one speaks its native tongue in the household, you're exempt all the details of that person's conversation, which keeps everything kind of cooler, kind of more serene. But anyway, about the sketchers, les croquistes.
Yes.
How did you get involved with them, and what is it? Tell me a little bit about it, and how it's a community, and how it's coming together, and how it's maybe enticing you to continue to produce work, because I imagine sometimes as artists we like to, have a hot chocolate by the fire and maybe not go down to the atelier all day long.
The idea of the croquis, I think, was founded, I'm not sure exactly of the history, but it must be at least 8 or 9 years ago, by two women here, Luce and Jeanette, who founded it. And it was founded as an artistic activity, an artistic club, but equally a social club. And now, I would say... It's
only a social club. No, I'm kidding.
it's 80% women, at least, I would say, in the club. And what it does is it provides a motivation for everybody who likes to draw to get out and get on with it. Yeah. And to have some way of sharing the drawings that you've done, because everything gets posted online. So everybody has an opportunity to demonstrate their works and to talk about their works and so on. But I don't want to give the impression that there is anything about highly skilled drawing in the croquist. It's a club for anybody who has the slightest temptation to draw, whether they have any competence or not, to participate, to come out on a sunny afternoon, to bring watercolor paints or bring pencils or crayons or whatever they have, and to simply enjoy themselves.
Oh, that's so nice. I imagine it might take you out of your comfort zone as an artist because there must be themes or destinations in particular, or, how does it work that everybody comes together, do unique works or sketches, but still, how can I say, there must be a theme per session? No?
There's a theme in as much as there is a particular site.
Yeah.
But within that site, everybody would have their own interests. So there will be people who may want to choose to draw some flowers, or somebody who may draw a tree, a house. One of the crockists particularly enjoys tractors. So whenever we go to a farm area, she always kind of hunts for a tractor and will draw a tractor. And so everybody really gets a choice to draw their own things. And of course, and I'll admit I'm the same, there are certain places where the crockists go that don't really interest me that much, so I won't participate that week. That's all. There's no obligation.
Is there a fee?
There's no fee.
No fee.
No.
So you go on the Facebook page, you take note of when the next time would be. If I wanted to get involved, I would just show up next time, or would I contact someone?
Well, the simplest thing is to contact Luce. Occasionally, we have sites that are restricted in the number of people, so we may set a limit that only 12 people can go, just simply because of parking of cars and that sort of thing. So someone like Luce or Gigi will keep a track and make sure that there's space for everybody. But everybody is absolutely welcome if the place we're visiting will allow it. Like 100 people if they want to come.
I see. And how many is in the club now, do you think? 80% women, we heard that.
There's 80% women. And I would say, a lot of people participate from time to time rather than regularly. I would guess that there must be close to 30, if not 50 people who are members. Members in as much as they log into the website and they look at the drawings and they make comments on the drawings. Typically on a day out, we would be anywhere between 12 and 20, probably.
That's nice still. And I'm wondering, because you mentioned the creative process for you, what would it be if you're on a site and you're looking for inspiration, or what will catch your attention? Is it a feeling when you're looking at something that you decide, I'm going to tackle this today?
I think if there's one thing that's common when I go out to draw, it's light. And I like to try and make a drawing three-dimensional. Yes. And in order to make something three-dimensional, you need to have a nice contrast of light and shade and so on. Yes. So it may be a tree, it may be a house, it may be anything that we choose to draw. But as long as it has a three-dimensionality to it, that's something I enjoy.
So that's what you would scout for in the landscape or
that's right.
At site. Is there a time of the day? We're talking about summer, for example. Is there a time of the day where it's more conducive to finding those elements with the right light?
There is, obviously, but the crockists normally meet about 1 o'clock, and we draw for about 3 hours in all. And then at the end of the day, everybody gets together and shows their work, shows what they've been drawing, and we'll chat about things. And one of the women there will always take a photograph of the group.
Yes.
And then post it all on the internet.
Hi, would you like to be on the show? Do you have any questions or ideas you'd like to share? Go to julietaylor.ca and leave me a message. So I was wondering, what kind of material would you bring to the croquiste?
Well, it's very much up to anyone. Obviously, it's some form of paper or maybe even a canvas. Yes. And some people bring paints. Other people will just bring charcoal or pencils or crayons. Very popular nowadays are felt pens, coloured felt pens, because you can get them in so many different colours. So many people bring along
Are these the types of felt pens that can be diluted with water and so start imitating aquarelle? But you're not referring to those.
Well, some people do use those that can be diluted with water. I have felt pens that are actually alcohol-based ink. So they can be diluted with alcohol, which is always interesting.
I see. Yes. Well, you seem to have a story of that. Want to share?
The one thing I would mention, though, is having a sketchbook. I find such an interesting thing to keep sketches together, to look back, because it almost becomes a diary. And I can look back on things that I've drawn in one of my books and remember, now I was there, I remember that, and there was that bird that sang, or there was these things going on, or I chatted to this person or that person, or even when I go on holiday, and I know a number of the sketchers do this, they take a sketchbook on holiday with them, and they'll sit when they have 10 minutes or half an hour or something and sketch something that they've seen on their vacation. And a sketch done in that fashion is much more impactful than a photograph, because you've actually sat down and you've drawn, and you can remember the sounds and the smells.
Absolutely.
And everything.
I'm thinking of two things. For the more modern people, I had an account on Instagram way back, and one single picture created that diary of my life and where the family was at, because the boys were growing up and whatnot. And it was such a very vivid way of filling gaps in my life.
Absolutely.
You start with a picture, but it bleeds to the next one, and you can almost feel a thread to your life.
That's right.
And if I imagine what you're saying as well, that you're saying it's even more vivid because it's an emotion-based, the presence that you must put yourself in.
That's right.
To sketch.
Yep.
Makes you hyper aware.
That's right. I remember on a couple of occasions when we've been down to Ogunquit, on the
Yes.
coast in the US, I would set up my easel and start drawing something or other. And a lot of other tourists are there, of course. And, of course, they stop by. And they say, hi, I like this, or I like that. And you end up having a conversation. And when I look back on that sketch and that sketchbook, I can remember the conversations that I'd had from the people who were passing by and the comments that they've made and so on.
That is so nice.
Yeah.
And you also do portraits.
I like portraits as my favourite subject. Yeah, I do.
And you take commissions?
I take commissions. I have done commissions. I completed one just a couple of weeks ago for one of my friends at the golf club. I did a little commission for the museum here, a picture of Paul Mulholland Knowlton. And they had a photographic portrait of him, but they didn't have a painting. So I made a little painting of Mulholland.
Can we find it at the museum?
I think it's at the museum, in the little cabane beside the museum. There's a little cabane that has a lot of Indian artifacts in it. I believe they have it in there.
So if we wanted to go look for it, how big is it? You said little.
Oh, it's only
how
little.
Is it?
I would say it's probably about 12 by 16 inches, if you can imagine that.
Okay, yeah. That's reasonable. It's a foot by almost 1.5. You would find it. It's not like 3 inches.
It's not like a miniature.
Exactly. Okay, we would see it. It's not like a sketch.
No.
All right. And you've been doing portraits for how long?
I've always been fascinated by portraits because I enjoy doing it. And everybody says portraits are the most difficult thing to do. So I thought, well, if that's the most difficult thing, I'm going to give it a shot. So I like to sort of challenge myself at the beginning. And now I'm beginning to get a certain familiarity and a certain, I would say, a competence in doing it.
Absolutely. How many years are we talking to build a competence in portraits? For you?
I've really been concentrating on it since I've retired, so probably the last 10, 15 years.
Well, I saw some pictures on your phone, and it's quite remarkable. I mean, it's almost like an image. It's quite beautiful.
I appreciate it. Thank you. The challenge in a portrait is everybody knows, or hopefully most people who you're giving the portrait to knows who it's supposed to be. So instantly they can say, yes, no, it doesn't look anything like them. But secondly, in a more subtle sense, there is a translucency and a finesse to flesh, to eyes, to features that oil paint, I find, can just about
deliver
if you have a certain amount of skill, a certain amount of practice, and can manage to do it. And that's great.
So I hear you're not an impressionist portraitist.
Not at all.
You're a realist.
I'm a realist, yes.
And did it take a long time for you to be satisfied with what you were creating?
Yes, normally it does. I get extremely annoyed, and you're supposed to take breaks while you're painting. If my painting has a flagrant error in it, I can't take a break. I must fix that error at least before I can take a little pause and take a break away from it.
And who might be some inspiration artists that you've looked to?
I've a host of portraitists that I find impression. And the most impressive one to start with is Hans Holbein, who's a 16th century portrait painter who was most well known for painting the court of Henry VIII. So all of the visitors and all of the wives and Henry himself, they're all painted by Holbein. And they're just magnificent paintings done 400 years ago, 500 years ago.
Did you know of him prior to doing portraits? Is this somebody that you've seen in museums when you were growing up, or?
It's somebody I'd seen in museums. I've always been interested in art history, so I sort of followed. I was probably more informed on art history than I was skilled at painting to start with. So I knew a lot of the names of the painters.
Yes.
When I first started to learn to paint, I was in England, and in many of the galleries in England, if you were a student artist, you were allowed to go into the gallery to set up your easel and to paint in front of the original. And so I used to do that quite frequently in the Tate Gallery and in the National Gallery and paint directly from looking at the original painting. Britain, in England particularly, I'm sure other countries do the same, is phenomenal for historical artifacts. I
guess they got to take a lot away from a lot of places.
Well, they did that. But the most important thing is the accessibility. I went to the British Library once because I was studying life drawing and I wanted to look at Michelangelo drawings. So I went into the British Library and I said, "You have Michelangelo drawings?" He said, "Yeah, absolutely, sir. Take a seat." I sat down and they brought a box out of the archive full of Michelangelo drawings and said, "There you go, have a look."
Wow.
And I could actually leaf through.
What year would this be?
This was back in, must have been the 70s.
Do you think something like that can happen today?
I believe it can. I'm not sure if they would hand out drawings like they did then, but you can certainly go into many galleries and in galleries around the world and paint directly in front of the original painting.
Yeah, well, the closest I got to this experience you've had is in the 70s being in England when you go to Westminster Abbey or something and you're allowed to pay a few pounds to use crayon on a
to do a brass
paper.
rubbing.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly.
Yes, that's right.
I was very impressed. I love those things.
I'm a fanatic for everything historical, and so England was a real boon of a place to go if you have any historical interest.
Yes.
The accessibility is just so wonderful.
Do you go back sometimes?
We go back occasionally. I haven't been back for a little while. I still have a sister who lives over there. One of her sons, in fact, is a professional artist in England. And so, I still have conversations and I go back from time to time, but I haven't been for perhaps 5-6 years now.
And you've been in Knowlton Hollow?
We bought the house in Knowlton in 2004.
But full-time since?
Full-time since 2010.
Okay, so that's still 15 years. That's a long
15,
time.
yeah.
Wow. Have you decided to do a farm or collect animals, or did your vocation change as you grew your home here in Knowlton?
Not particularly. When we visited the house that we've eventually bought, it was one of those, as I say in French, coup de cœur. We saw it and we bought it the next day. It's on a river, and so I have a river running through the land, a waterfall, and it used to be an electric power station way back in the end of the 19th century. So the house was actually originally built in the 19th century, and it used to be the house of the dam keeper. Who kept regard and look on at the dam, and so it's a very picturesque spot. It's at the end of a cul-de-sac, so there's absolutely no traffic, and there's nobody knows about it. It's a little hidden secret. We call it our hidden secret.
That is amazing for a historian buff like you to get a little piece of history.
It is,
right here.
A little piece of history.
Yeah,
that's right.
If we wanted to be in touch with you and commission a portrait, how would we reach you?
An email.
Go ahead.
And the email it's a little bit complicated.
Do you want us to say it on the air?
I don't mind, yeah. It's a combination of mine and my wife's surname. So it's B-A-L, Bal, Carrie, C-A-R-R-I, because my wife's name is Carrière. So it's balcarrie @action.ca.
Great. So for anybody interested in commissioning a portrait or getting in touch with John, you have the information now. And thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
It was lovely talking with you.
I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Bye. This catchy, positive, upbeat pop song by Fred Bound at Free Music Archive is licensed CC BY.